Alright, so let's finally get to the actual pencil and paper of graphing parabolas. In this case, we're going to take this quadratic function, y equals negative 2x minus 1, and we're going to graph our parabola here. And although we can kind of predict what we're going to get, we still don't have enough information to just graph this automatically. Okay, but we can take a look at this and say, okay, first off, a is negative, which means this is going to be an upside down or downward opening graph, an upside down U-shape. If we were comparing it to the parent graph, the absolute value of a is 2, which means it's going to be more narrow than the parent graph we saw in the other videos. The fact that c is minus or negative 1 means it's going to be shifted slightly lower than the parent graphs that we've been seeing. Alright, but bottom line is that we have to go back to old school graphing, which is dot by dot. So what we're going to do is just like we've done in the past. You're going to make a t-table for values of x and y, and you just start picking values for x and plugging them in. Now, one thing I would not do here, since this is not as predictable as a linear function where you get a straight line, pick your points and graph them as you go. That way you can make educated guesses and decisions about what your next number should be. So for example, I like to start with 0. 0 is an easy number to work with. If I had more space here, I'd write it out on paper, but for now, let's just go ahead and do it verbally. If we plug in 0 for x, in terms of order of operations, exponents come first. So 0 squared is 0, and then 0 times negative 2, still 0. Minus 1 would be negative 1. So I can go across to 0, down to negative 1, and then there's my first point. So staying in the center of my graph, that looks good. So I can start picking numbers around 0. Let's try positive 1. Now again, normally you should write this out on your paper, but since we're a little short on screen space here, let's just do it this way. 1 squared is 1. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. And negative 2 minus 1 would be negative 3. So across to 1, down to negative 3. Let's try 2. X is 2. Plug it in. 2 squared is 4. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 minus 1 is negative 9. So 2, negative 9. Alright, you can see what I was talking about here. Now that I can kind of see where this is going, it's kind of arching downward here. If I go to 3, I'm going to be off my graph. So here's where I start making some decisions where I say, okay, you know what, let's start going the other direction. Let's do negative 1, because you can see here 3 points is not enough. I can start to see that parabolic arch, but I don't know quite where it goes up to and when it's going to start turning downwards. So let's do negative 1. Now, negative 1 plugged in. Negative 1 squared would be positive 1. Positive 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. Negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. So negative 1, negative 3. Alright, so now I can start to see some symmetry. So even though I can kind of see where it's going to be, let's go ahead and let's do negative 2. If I'm thinking of this right, negative 2 should be on the opposite side of this dot here. So let's try it out. Negative 2 squared is positive 4. Positive 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. And negative 8 minus 1 is negative 9. So cross to negative 2, down to negative 9. And there we can see it. Alright, so now I can sketch my parabola. Remembering that, oh, this is horrible because I'm on the monitor, but do the best you can. That parabolas are kind of smooth curves. So don't make a jagged dot-to-dot picture. Try as best you can to smooth out that curve so that here we have our vertex, our line of symmetry, and we can see that parabolic arch, like again, like a ball being thrown in the air. Alright, and this is how you graph parabolas. Pick values for x, graph them as you go so you can make smart choices about what you pick, plug them in one at a time, get your values for y, and then graph them. And this, I would say, is bare minimum. You need at least 5 points to make your graph. You do less than this and you might not have an accurate picture of what you're going to see. So always try to make at least 5 entries in your table so that you get a nice, complete parabolic graph. You know, if you need to go past 5, definitely do it. 6, 7, even 8 more points would help, but 5 should be the bare minimum.